Welcome back to Vuln Vibes. In this episode, we are going to talk about Veeam exploit. Today, we're doing a really critical deep dive. We're pulling together the technical details on 3 recently patched vulns affecting, well, the heart of enterprise recovery, Veeam Backup and Replication VBR, and also the Veeam agent for Windows.
Yeah, and just to set the stage, this isn't your, average patch Tuesday update. We're looking at 2 critical remote code execution flaws. That's CVE-2025-48983 and CVE-2025-48984.
Both scoring a 9.9 CVSS.
Exactly, near maximum. That's serious territory.
A 9.9 RCE impacting the backup system itself. I mean, that goes beyond just a typical security risk, doesn't it? That's hitting operational continuity, resilience right where it hurts.
Absolutely. Think about it. If an attacker gets RCE on your VBR server, they essentially own your recovery capability.
They can just deny recovery, make ransomware impact guaranteed.
It becomes the ultimate target, yeah. For persistence, maximum leverage, data destruction, you name it. So our mission today is really about tactical intel for you listening. We need to unpack the specifics, the prerequisites, the scope, and obviously the remediation path for these 2 big RCEs in VBR.
And there's a third one too, right? An LPE?
That's right. A high-severity, local privilege escalation on the agent side. We'll get into that too. But the urgency, frankly, feels like we should be treating this almost like an active incident response.
Okay, agreed. Let's dive into the vectors then. A 9.9 usually suggests, low complexity, easy to weaponize. But the first one, CVE-2025-48983, it has a specific prerequisite, doesn't it?
It does. So this one targets the mount service within VBR. And the crucial detail here is that exploitation requires an authenticated domain user.
Ah, okay. So not pre-auth.
It's something, but it's still incredibly dangerous because if an attacker gets that initial foothold elsewhere...
Right, like through phishing or compromising a regular user workstation.
Exactly. Then they can potentially pivot using those legitimate domain credentials.
And use this mount service flaw to execute code remotely on the backup hosts themselves.
Precisely. It allows that authenticated user, just a standard domain user in many cases, to run arbitrary code, RCE, on the host where the mount service is running.
So this essentially ties the security of your Tier 0 backup infrastructure directly to the security of your general domain user accounts, if one gets popped.
The path to compromising the backup system becomes much, much shorter. It bypasses the segmentation you thought you had.
Okay, that's nasty. Now, what about the second critical one? CVE-2025-48984. This one hits the backup server component directly.
Yes, the backup server itself, the prerequisite is quite similar again. It needs a domain user, this time specifically one with network access to the server.
Network access, right. So slightly different barrier maybe, but why is RCE on the actual backup server often seen as, well, the ultimate prize?
Well, think about what runs there. The backup server is the brain. It orchestrates everything: backup jobs, restore points, replication, maybe even tapeouts.
All the core logic.
All of it.
Yeah.
So getting RCE there means an attacker can do, well, anything. They can delete backups, maybe even just subtly corrupt them over time. They can target specific data.
They can modify job settings, maybe disable immutability features if they're configured.
Exactly. They control the entire recovery process. They don't just compromise the data you have now. They compromise your ability to get any data back later. It guarantees the impact of whatever else they're doing.
Total system failure, essentially.
Pretty much. And it's worth stressing again, like you said, both of these critical RCEs need that domain user context. That's the common thread.
Which really highlights an architectural consideration beyond just patching, doesn't it? About how tightly coupled these systems often are.
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
Now, connecting this back, to the bigger picture, for the teams managing large environments, we need to be really clear about the scope. Where does this actually bite?
Okay, give us the specifics. Which versions are vulnerable?
So both CVE 2025-48983 and CVE 2025-48984 are specific to Veeam Backup and Replication V12 builds.
V12 only.
V12 only. Specifically, the advisory mentions version 12.3.2.3617 and, crucially, all earlier version 12 builds. If you're on V12, you need to check your build number.
Is there any limitation on the deployment type? Any good news there?
Yes, there is some important context. The vulnerability only affects domain-joined VBR V12 backup infrastructure servers. That's a critical point.
Only domain-joined. Okay.
And Veeam also confirmed a couple of other things, that Veeam Software appliance, that's not impacted.
Right.
And looking forward, the upcoming Backup and Replication V13 is apparently architecturally not vulnerable to these specific issues.
Okay, so that gives some clarity perhaps for future planning or migration. But The immediate fire is on those current V12 domain join setups.
All right, that's where the immediate risk lies.
So for anyone listening who runs those systems, the message is pretty clear. What's the exact patch they need to be deploying, like yesterday?
The fix is rolled into one specific update. You need to get to Veeam Backup Replication 12.3.2.4165 patch. That's the build number to aim for.
12.3.2.4165 patch.
Got it.
And given the 9.9 CVSS scores, this isn't something to schedule for the next maintenance window. This needs immediate attention, emergency change territory, really.
Absolutely. Okay, let's pivot then to the third vulnerability. Still important, even if not a 9.9. This is the LPE on the agent side. CVE-2025-48982. CVSS 7.3 high severity. Why should we still be paying close attention to this one?
That's a good question, especially next to the RCEs. So LPE local privilege escalation means the attacker needs to already be on the machine, right? They need that initial local access, likely as a low-privilege user.
Right, they've already got a foothold on the endpoint where the agent is running.
Exactly. But what makes the CVE 2025-48982, the 7.3, interesting and still quite concerning is the specific way it's exploited. It actually requires user interaction.
User interaction, you mean like tricking someone? Pretty much, yeah. This vulnerability is in the Veeam agent for Microsoft Windows version 6.3.2.1205, and earlier v6 builds are affected. The exploit happens if a system administrator,
An admin specifically.
yes, an admin is somehow deceived or tricked into restoring a malicious file using the agent.
Ah, okay. So the attacker crafts some kind of malicious file, makes it look legitimate, maybe puts it in a backup set or something.
Or tampers with metadata, perhaps. The goal is to get an admin, maybe during a stressful recovery situation.
When they're just trying to get things back online quickly.
Right. And they quickly restore this file, not realizing it's malicious. And that action triggers the vulnerability, allowing the attacker's code, which was running as a low-privilege user, to gain local system privileges.
Wow. So it leverages the trust and the urgency associated with the recovery process itself. That's quite clever, actually. Social engineering meets technical flaw.
It really is. It combines those elements.
Yeah.
So while it's not as easily automated perhaps as the RCEs for a targeted attacker who's already inside and wants to escalate on a key endpoint, it's a viable path. It turns that initial low-level compromise into a full system takeover on that specific machine.
And potentially bypassing endpoint security that might be looking for more common escalation techniques because it's using the legitimate agent's restore function.
That's a definite possibility. It uses the trusted process against itself.
Okay, and for this agent LPE, what's the fix?
For the agent, the patched version is Veeam Agent for Windows 6.3.1302. So you need to make sure your endpoint agent fleet is getting updated too, not just the central VBR server.
Right. Patching endpoints is always its own challenge, but this adds another layer of urgency for those agent installs.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's try and synthesize this for everyone listening. We've got two critical 9.9 RCEs targeting the VBR server itself, the absolute core of recovery. Both need domain credentials, hitting the mount service and the backup server component.
Allowing remote takeover if that initial domain credential is compromised. Catastrophic potential.
Then we have the high-severity 7.3 LPE on the Windows agent. Needs local access first, yes, but uses that clever admin deception trick during restore to escalate privileges on the endpoint.
Yeah, hitting version 12 builds for the RCEs, specifically domain joined, and version 6 builds for the agent LPE.
The immediate actions are clear. Patch VBR to 12.3.2.4165 and patch the agent to 6.3.2.1302.
Absolutely. But, stepping back for a final thought, what's really fascinating, or maybe alarming, here is how starkly this highlights the risk of tightly coupling backup infrastructure with the general Active Directory domain.
Because both 9.9s relied on that domain user context.
Exactly. The backup system, which ideally should be this isolated bastion of recovery, becomes vulnerable just because a standard user account somewhere else got compromised. It really forces a rethink, doesn't it?
It makes you question the architecture. If an attacker gets RCE on your VBR server, like we said, it's not just about data loss, it's about losing the ability to recover. That's existential.
It truly is. So the immediate call to action is patch. Get to 12.3.2.4165 now. But the longer term, maybe more strategic question for you to mull over is, how do you architect your next recovery environment to break that dependency? How do you design it so that compromising a regular domain account doesn't automatically give an attacker the keys to your entire backup kingdom?
That's the bigger challenge, isolating recovery infrastructure properly.
That's the resilience challenge these vulns really throw into sharp relief.
Food for thought indeed. For now, check those build numbers. Prioritize the 12.3.2.4165 patch immediately if you're running V12 domain joined. We'll see you on the next deep dive.